It's equally valuable.
My name is Franny Knight, and I am excited for our second episode, part 2 of the Streetcar extension and its impact. And my co-host is Damon Patterson. Hi, Damon.
Hello, everybody.
We've got people who've joined us. Isn't that great?
I see a couple of people there.
Yes, it's my team. Thanks, Marissa, Stacy, Mark, for coming in and checking us out. We've got a great show for you all, but just first want to give you an overview, a summary of why are we doing this, Damon?
We're doing this because we have an interest in development in Kansas City. That's kind of the main reason. And there's a lot going on in Kansas City right now. And it's a great way to let people know what's going on.
And we have to make sure everybody knows who's joining us or watching this later. We're going to be posting this on, we've got all the social media platforms set up for the Kansas City Dev Report. This is a long-term project for Damon and I, and we've got a website, we've got Facebook pages where you guys joined us, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. We've got them all, and we're going to be posting this video everywhere. So if you're watching it later, welcome to our recast. And the thing that we want everybody to know is we're not commercial realtors. We are not urban planners or developers. We are coming at development from like Damon said, just a real interest in what's going on in Kansas City around development. And development is everything from really small, medium, large, like the large developments going on right now is the airport, the new airport being built, and the streetcar, obviously, that's why we picked it. But we're going to be doing multiple size projects. And my take is just like, how's it affecting us on so many different levels, from our opportunities to real estate. Of course, I'm interested in that residential real estate, to our culture, to our art. Just like, what does it do to all of us in Kansas City? That's my take on it. Anything you want to add to this big overview, Damon?
Yeah, I think overall, Kansas City's kind of transforming as a whole, just as far as all the different districts and, your city market and your downtown, your Power Light, Plaza, Crossroads, Brookside. And I think the streetcar, in a way, is tying those areas together in a way.
Yeah, that is very interesting. It's an interesting how development does that, right? So let's just get started with, we picked the streetcar again because it has very big impact on so many things. Last week we talked about the history of the streetcar, which was very interesting. And the first part of the streetcar, you have anything to say about that, Damon, from last week that was a highlight for you?
It's kind of interesting that it's coming back around and we're going back to streetcars when we used to have, there were hundreds all over the city. And there's some streets you can still see tracks from the old streetcars, which I think is interesting. Yeah, I think as far as it coming full circle and being a streetcar city again.
I have two things. Of course, I can always have more than one. Two things from last week that really hit me. When you said that the city decided to get rid of the streetcar and add buses, do buses instead. I'm guessing it was probably an economic or who knows, money somewhere in the mix. But what I find interesting about that is buses don't create that third space, that community feel that you get in a street. Because streetcar, you can walk around, it's bigger, there's more people, it's just more open, and so you're not sitting, not really facing anybody. Streetcars lined up to where there's different places to sit that you can actually, it's almost like a subway in the feel of it.
It's a lot like a subway.
And the art, we're going to talk in this section, in this episode, about art a little bit more and how it's creating opportunities for more art in the loop. So we're going to get, the one other thing I want to tell you, everybody, is I don't know if you can see my shirt. I have Cultivate KC. I am at the Plex Pod doing this recording, and the Cultivate KC has a big garden out here, and they were having a farmer's market. They do every other Thursday, and I'm suggesting that if you have a company or a company who might want to be a sponsor for us, who can send us t-shirts ahead of time, we will we'll wear the t-shirt and give a little bit of airtime for the company, especially if it's around Kansas City development. We'd love that. Okay, so just wanted to point that out. Okay, so let's talk about the extension, the expansion, and if anybody wants to get any more information, we have a couple places you can go. First, buildkcstreetcar.com has a lot more details that you can go to. And at the end, we'll bring up the Kansas City Dev Report website, which is just the kcdevreport.com. And you can go there and give us your email. We'll give you more information, as well as the show notes, of course. I see all this work going on Main Street. What's the projection of what's happening?
Well, it has started, at least the first phases. It's not scheduled to be complete until 2025. So what you see now is kind of the pre-work that takes place, because they have to update all of the utilities along that route, as far as the sewer system, water lines, gas lines, telecommunications, fire hydrants, that sort of, and they're updating the intersections. And so it's kind of the prelude before the actual tracks and everything starts getting laid. And the first phase is the utilities. So
that's why everything's down to one lane on Main Street. I'm avoiding Main Street now. It's just, so tell us about what's the route going to be, and about how many stops are there going to be?
The actual extension is starting where the first streetcar ended, which was Union Station. So that stop will be the start of the extension, and it's going to go all the way down Main until you get to about Main and Moore Parkway. Then it curves into 51st and Brookside, where it's going to stop at UMKC, and it's going to be a total of 9 stops that'll be added, which will be you have, of course, Union Station being the first. You have 27th and Main, Liberty Memorial, 31st and Main, Armour and Main, 39th and Main, 43rd Main, 45th and Main, and then you have War Parkway Main, and then finally UMKC, which is 51st and Brookside. And that's the route.
And if you go to the streetcar website that we gave you in the beginning, it'll show you all the stops, which is very interesting. I find it so interesting how they pick. And we're going to talk about how there are a few people who got a little upset at the Westport stop, not really being in Westport. So, but we'll come back to that. But I think there's some great stops. There's actually some marketing going on from the River to the Ruse. River to the Ruse is a campaign. So, because UMKC's the Kangaroos, the Ruse.
Yeah, Ruse.
Yeah, I don't know who's doing the marketing, but that's interesting. Speaking of marketing, and what are they calling this particular route?
Strangely, they're calling it the Southern Expansion. I kept seeing that when I was doing research. It's the Southern Expansion. It's kind of funny, but
that is funny. Southern Expansion.
I guess it's south of Union Station, I guess.
Well, that reminds me when Nichols was developing all the suburbs, that was Brookside and Countryside. That was considered the suburbs. So maybe it's a past reflection on that's the south route. I don't know. Well, hopefully they'll go farther than that, and they'll have to come up with another name. I wanted them to call it the Midtown route, but they didn't ask me.
That would have been good.
There's also another
Southern Expansion.
There's also a third extension, right?
There's a third one that recently got approved, and I believe it's either funded or partially funded. I just learned about this one researching it, but they want to expand from City Market down to Berkeley Park. So it's along that where there's some development going on there too. But yeah, that's the third one.
Okay.
And there's even some talks of and there's North Kansas City has entered in the conversation about extending it across the river into North Kansas City, but it's just in the discussion phase right now. But yeah, that third one is Berkeley Riverfront Park.
What's the cost of it?
So far, what I'm seeing is $351 million for the total cost.
Who's paying for that? That's a lot of money.
Yeah. So half of that is coming from the FTA, the Federal Transit Authority. And Kansas City got so it's called a New Starts Capital Investment Grant for $174 million. And the other half of that is coming from taxpayers, not all taxpayers. There was interesting. There was a transportation development district that was created, called TDD, which is basically property, retail. It's a 1% sales tax for those businesses and residential parking lots and whatnot that are around that Main Street route. So on average, if you look at the route on Main Street, if it goes about 4 blocks east and west on average, but some blocks, mainly downtown, that goes sometimes about 6 to 9 blocks east and west of the route.
Yeah, so I put on the screen here what Ewan's talking about. So
those yellow and green areas is the Transportation Development District that was created to pay for the other half, and that was voted on. I think it was 75.6% people voted yes on question 1, and 74.7% people voted yes on question 2, which is the special assessments. So that's where that other half is coming from to make up that $351 million.
All of our participants right now are residential real estate agents. From a real estate perspective, a residential real estate perspective, that affects property taxes. I know you said that. It's a special assessment tax, and so the people who have homes in that area may actually be not happy about that. But the flip side of that, the pro to it all, is studies after studies in all cities who put in streetcars, the property values actually go up in those areas. their taxes will go up too, but listen, when you have $100,000 more equity in your house, another couple of grand in taxes a year offsets it. But not all of Kansas City voted on this, correct?
Right. It was the people who were in that zone that was created, Transportation Development District.
And so that was
they
both
voted basically
businesses?
to, I think it's businesses and residential. If you have property within that district, and you could have voted, or you voted on whether or not to have that 1% sales tax and special assessments.
And so I'm telling you, when I saw that 75% approval number, I mean, it was 74 for the businesses and 70, I mean, it was about an average of 75% for both businesses and property owners. And I think renters too got to vote. If you lived in that area, you got to vote, I think. I may be wrong about it. Don't quote me on that. But so a 75% approval is pretty big. That says a lot about, I think, what Kansas City thinks about the streetcar, right? Don't you think that's a pretty positive?
Yeah, 75% is a large number. I mean, that's more than half. So
yeah, that's I would not have guessed that either. That really surprised me that many people, because those are the people who are paying for it. So you would think that might be a little bit less. But there's been a tiny bit of controversy though, even though they all voted for it. The controversy was the people in the Westport area, right?
Yeah, that was some of it. So if that's 75, then there's there's 25% that either didn't vote or didn't want it. And some of the property owners in Westport didn't feel that the streetcar foot traffic would extend into Westport. They didn't feel that because it's 39th and Main that the stop is going to be at, and some people wanted it to be Westport Road in Maine, and then it was 39th and Main, but some property owners didn't feel that people would make the walk from 39th and Main over deeper into Westport. I'm guessing over Pennsylvania and Mill Street and whatnot, but I think it was smart to put it on 39th and Main because it connects with the bus route, so it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a lot of apartments right there. I mean, it's what I have learned in my reading about streetcar, that the stops, the more density there is, the better it is for the businesses. So when a stop happens and there's a lot of people at that stop, then businesses grow because it's a thing, right? Like it's more businesses get more traffic. And so the only place in Westport would have been at 43rd, at Main and Westport Road. And there's not much density there. There's not any apartments at all right there. So there are a few businesses and restaurants, but I also have again, I'm not an expert, but again, I have, I feel that all the businesses have really got traffic. When we look at the streetcar now, and you look at how it does, that's why they did that TDD, the 4 to 8 block from it. Businesses do have traffic that far out. And you can tell that by when they're building all those apartments, buildings and renovating them, it's all in that 4 to 8 block area. It just makes so much sense. So I think Westport is going to get the traffic that they want. That's my feel.
Totally.
If anybody wants to argue with me, that's fine, but.
Yeah. I mean, 39th Main is Westport.
Well, true, right, exactly. This is true. But the Smart KC, I'm not sure. I don't know that group, but they were the ones who started it up. So we might take a look at them later. So I want to just pop up. Stacy had a comment. She says the extension will make it more accessible for Kansas City residents. The current line is geared more for visitors. Aha. Yes, I would agree with that.
I would agree with that totally.
I think that's
Yeah,
very true.
because it's City Market to UMKC, not Union Station. Yeah, that's kind of a tourist kind of thing.
Yeah. Thanks,
And
Stacy.
the extension definitely makes it more functional. And plus the stops, I think in the decision making on where the stops would be, all the stops are on the main east and west streets, like 27, 31st, Armour, 39, 43rd, 40. Those are all main east and west streets, and all of them have buses. They have bus routes, so that'll be able to connect people going east and west, and then you'll have that north and south, and it's free.
First off, I always am interested in like what companies are getting business from this, what jobs are being created from this. I did go to the Streetcar website, not the bill. So I have buildkcstreetcar.com down here, but the Streetcar website is it's the actual like where you go to apply for a job to be in the Streetcar. They're hiring quite a few people right now. So just that alone is bringing some jobs. But let me just bring, let me show, we have you can say a little bit more about this, but this is the group of companies who are designing the Streetcar, right? But look at all these companies.
Yeah, those are designing, planning, engineering. So that's pretty much everything. Deciding what is needed in order to put the Streetcar in, which I think they're probably way past the design and planning, and probably everything is just being implemented right now, and we'll see the phases happen. I'm curious if the entire route is going to be blocked off until 2025, or they're going to do it in sections. I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, that is interesting. So that's just the beginning. So then you're going to actually have building contractors who are going to, I mean, it's going to really bring in a lot of jobs, I think. So that's one impact. There are other impacts though. What are some other impacts that the Streetcar is having? So the residential getting involved, like Stacy said, jobs. I'm going to pop up here. There's pros that you had come up with, Damon, that I think are very important. You want to talk about
I think
zero fare transit?
Yeah, so Kansas City recently, I think it was a little before, kind of right around the beginning of the pandemic and a little after, there was a resolution that passed to zero fare. So that's buses and the Streetcar. And we're one of the only cities, I believe, it might be a couple of other ones, that actually have free buses across the city, which to some people may not seem like a big deal. It's like, oh, $1.50, $1.50, you get a bus pass. But I think to some people that might be impactful, just the fact that, well, that's still a little change that you didn't spend. So, that impacts people who take the bus to work or to school or to daycare or to the grocery store, wherever people need to travel to. And I do think that's interesting to have free buses, and then the Streetcar is free. So yeah, I thought that was interesting and cool. As far as impact, I think what we're seeing and what we're starting to see as far as property value, not just residential but commercial. Um, we know most businesses want to be where there's natural traffic and flow. That's kind of your location, location, location. We always hear that in commercial real estate or just real estate in general. So having those nodes of traffic, I think is going to inspire some new businesses on that route. Like I think we'll start seeing some different stuff pop up along that.
Yeah, I do too. It's exciting. We don't even know yet what's going to pop up.
Right.
There are several real estate groups buying up property along the line, and it's pretty big. Well, I also
Yeah, I think Mac just bought like an entire block on 36th in Maine.
Yeah, Mac, yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah. Yep. They're buying but that's okay. I think they do a pretty good job. They did a good job, I think, on developing and renovating the apartments on Armour.
Yeah.
Has made that a big change. That could be another topic we have in the future. I also think impact that's a little bit you can measure jobs, you can measure what people are saving in fares. It's harder to, you can measure property taxes. We can measure residential real estate, how much prices are going up, although it's a little more challenging right now because prices are just going up all over the place. And so to sort that out, to see if it's the market in general or if it's because of the streetcar extension, it's a little hard to tell. But I know, and I'm sure every real estate agent who works Midtown like Urban Cool KC does, which we are a sponsor of this, that we talk to people, we are our buyer clients that we're showing houses to in Midtown. If it's walking distance to the streetcar, we're letting people know this is a very good buy. Like, it's going to go up in equity and price because of its easy access to the streetcar. So I know we talk about that a lot, as well as the commercial. Okay, I want to switch gears before we have to wrap this up. I want to talk about art and culture, as well as like the impact the streetcar is having on art and culture. And that's so strange, right? Like, how can streetcars have impact on art and culture? Doesn't.
Well, they do. Art is where people are. Artists tend to gravitate where there's an audience. I mean, if you look at a city like New York and the art and performance culture that are on subways, on the stations, near the stations, like that's an entire culture. Dancers, musicians, the busking world, and so yeah, it can definitely and even murals. So you can think about the opportunity for more murals to appear, which I've seen a lot of new murals appear in Kansas City. I think we're embracing street art more these days. Yes. I've seen a lot of murals pop up, and I'm sure there'll be some along that route.
This is, if you go to artintheloop.com, you will see, I'm going to just try to make this a little bit bigger for everybody. You're going to see how, when you go to artintheloop.com, there's a really great video. It has some ads and stuff, so we didn't want to run the video, but if you click there, it's a beautiful video of actually showing all these artists at the stops, is what they have right now. And these are what we have in at the stops now. Just think, we've got 9 more stops coming, right? And so that's given, I mean, it's big. This is huge for artists. And as you can see here with the, Hector Garcia has also another great video on Vimeo with how they put the resilient spirit of Kansas City on the streetcar. So not only at the stops, but also the streetcars also get to have art on them as well. And so I just think it's, I mean, everybody should, I would love to just go take a look at just I haven't been, I'm not on the streetcar all the time. So I don't see when the artists are showing up. So that's just a small impact that it has on art. And we spoke of culture a little bit before, just about like when there are events happening downtown. And so this is without the extension, okay? So now when there are events happening downtown, now pandemic, I mean, we're all still in pandemic fog, right? And we didn't go to events for the last year and a half.
Yeah.
It's going to start again. And the Sprint, now T-Mobile Center, and everything in downtown, the Kaufman Arts Foundation, all the stuff that we go to in downtown. Riding the streetcar to those events is a cultural sharing of space. And, you know, most of the time it is for art. Now, sometimes it's sports too, but most of the time we're going to go see concerts, right? So performing arts and First Friday's art and all that. So there's still a lot of art, but it's just the sharing of that. I think it's really beautiful what can happen on the streetcar. And now with it going all the way to UMKC, and as Stacy said about it being more in residential, more people will ride to go to these events. And I knew people who would go from Brookside and like ride their bikes to ride it all the way to pick up the streetcar at Union Station to go to an event down at the Sprint Center. Now I just can't, and you know, the mixing of different ethnicities and you know, those who live north of the plaza is a very different group that lives south of the plaza. And so the mixing of different type of people, I mean, all kinds. I mean, I think there's a big change when you get north of the plaza with, I think there are more artists and just edgy kind of people who live north of the plaza versus south of the plaza. But that's just my take.
UMKC, I think, is an interesting stop too, because I think last time I looked at it, there's about 16,000 total enrollment, you know, students there. So that population mixing in and moving around, you know, between the city. I think that's interesting.
So true. Gosh, I didn't even think about that. That is so true. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 16,000 students.
16,000.
You know. Oh, and then there's, Rockhurst, and it's all that's kind of, it's a little further over, but it's still pretty close.
Yeah.
Oh, Stacy said, the museums, right?
Yeah.
You have all the museums there, which I guess that's 45th and Main. So that all, it all kind of connects.
And that's also, you know, the Kansas City Art Institute and Kemper and Nelson and what you're talking about, that whole, the whole Southmoreland Art District. Totally. I mean, that's just, I was so excited. What are the cons? We haven't talked about any cons other than the one group who didn't like the stop at 39th and Main versus Westport Road.
I don't really know. One, it's not done yet, so we don't totally know. But what those are. I know the construction on the street is pretty annoying for people.
Yeah, very true.
And that's going to be for the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and definitely property taxes going up for the residents in that area. That is it's a con, but I still
Yeah.
think it's flipped. It's balanced with the prices of their houses are probably going to go up. But you know, if you're not planning to move, you know, not everybody wants to sell their house when the property values go up. People love to live where they're at. And so they're going to see a big change in that. So that could be a little bit of a con, can be a big con, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we have covered quite a bit.
Yeah.
Again, if you are have joined us, are going to be joining us after the show, we're going to be posting the replay. Make sure to go to, or to type in the comments wherever you're at. Just type show notes and we'll get you the show notes, and which is just a transcript of the show. We will be, we're just getting these going. We're going to get the podcast up and running here soon, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So it'll be available for podcasts, which can be good to just listen to versus watching. And also go to, we've got a new website up, and it's the CaseyDevReport.com. So you might go check that out. And if you can sign up to get on our email list if you're interested. And if you know anybody who wants to sponsor our show, we would love to talk to them about becoming a sponsor. And again, if you've got a t-shirt you can send, we would love to wear t-shirts or coffee mugs. That would be fun to help get the word out with your sponsorship. So I'll let you wrap the final wrap up, Damon, for this show. What are we trying to?
Well, I think we want to inspire people and inform them about what's happening in Kansas City, and hopefully we inspire some people to get involved and be developers and join in what's happening. So we're learning together. I want to put that out there. We're definitely learning together about what is development, how does development work. You know, so I'm learning every show is a rabbit hole.
Hey, we haven't even talked about what we're going to talk about next week. Oh,
We haven't.
Well, it'll be a surprise. We'll post it soon. It'll be a surprise. Well, yeah. Everybody let other people know every Thursday at 6 o'clock we'll be here, and we're going to start gaining some momentum, and I can't wait. So everybody have a good night, stay dry, and we'll see you next Thursday.
It's equally valuable.